Hey everybody, I'm here with Nick from the Hamiltons. How are you, Nick?
Hey, I'm doing well. Good to be here.
Great. It was very cool to get to know your music. The first thing I'm going to ask you is about what the inspiration behind your idea to do a Dracula themed album.
Um, so with the Hamilton, that record that my friends John and Chris did with me, it is the concept behind that band. I think was originally the Aaron and the Birds got asked to play a surf party, and one of the members was on tour. So I asked a couple other people, like, well, we got to play the beach party, right? Like the annual beach party in Buffalo for quite a few years took place in February in a house. They dumped sand in there. They cranked the thermostat up to 90 in the middle of February when, like, outside it's 10, something like that.
Yeah.
So we have to play. The Birds couldn't. The Hamilton started. That was probably in 2014, February 2014, and I had actually met John earlier, but we had really bonded very recently back then over watching the Apple Films movie Son of Drac, starring Harry Nilsson. So like we all got together, Chris, John, and I got together and watched that movie. Have you seen it?
No, but I have Apple TV, so I was like, I saw
Oh,
it pop up.
Apple Films, as in Ringo Starr's film company from
Oh.
from the 70s.
I'm embarrassed.
No, you're good. Apple Films was this offshoot of Apple Records. Ringo Starr wanted to do movies. They're absolutely horrible. Son of Drac is so bad that after they finished, they just decided to destroy every copy, and it hadn't been seen until like the 90s. And then someone showed up at like a Beatles convention with a VHS copy and said, "Hey, I've got this." It is so bad, but it's got all this Harry Nilsson music in it, so it's like redeemably bad, and it's just so atrocious. Anyway, we watched this. We really bonded over that. We started being a band pretty low key for a number of years. And then when it came time to actually make a record, we decided to sort of harken back to that moment where we all bonded over a horrible, maybe the worst ever Dracula B movie. So that's where that inspiration came from. It's all that very, very bad Ringo Starr movie that I could not recommend more. I think you should go online and watch it as soon as you can.
Is it as good as Caveman?
Is it as good as what?
Is it as good as Caveman?
Okay, I promise you, it's significantly worse than Caveman. Caveman is like a watchable movie where a Tuk Zug Lana, but like Son of Drac is hard. It's hard.
So up in Buffalo, I know you're pretty far out from New York City, but there's going to be Twang Stock. Are you going to be heading there this spring?
I was not planning on it, but yeah, Buffalo, by the way, is like a 7-hour drive from New York City.
Okay.
It's not close.
Yeah.
I think we've all got stuff to do. I haven't been to a lot of like surf conventions. I will occasionally make it out to like the Otto's Shrunken Head surf rock shindig, but like occasionally, or I will occasionally go to Toronto to see stuff. But again, I would say I was doing that all the time, and then COVID prevented me from going to Canada for a couple of years, which Toronto has a great, thriving surf scene. I was going to probably every couple of months going to a surf show up there, and then you couldn't go. So what are you gonna do?
Yeah. What were you working on during the pandemic, music wise?
I mean, so not as much as you'd think. I think we were all kind of bottlenecked and not doing too much. As soon as we could get back together, we were working on the Hamilton's Dracula Invitational record, which came out in March of 2021. But that the stems for that, like the drums for that, got recorded in December of 2019, I think. So then big gap. Then sort of we recorded our own parts kind of on our own as we could, got back together after we got the vaccine and made that happen.
Nice. I saw you have a pre-order up now for your new album, which I listened to. It's pretty incredible. Well, I only heard the one song because I think that's the only thing available on Bandcamp, but I really liked it. And I am going to pick up the vinyl. Perhaps next week I'll pre-order it, but it is available on Bandcamp. The link will be in the description. But talk about the process for making that record and what was the inspiration about In Space.
So it's a sort of twofold. Is we made such a weird themed record with Dracula Invitational that we wanted to do that again, but we didn't want to do the same thing again. We didn't want to be just a horror band, so we went with, well, where do you go sort of back in time? We went sort of forward in time. We're big Star Trek fans. We're big into sci-fi and surf have this are sort of tied together because, you know, surf originates in the mid-century in the space age. So just by merit of when it emerged as an art form, it's going to have those mid-century ties. Obviously, The Ventures in Space is one of the best surf records ever. And that was kind of a joke that, you know, The Ventures in Space is unbelievably adventurous. The Ventures are not necessarily known for being an adventurous band. You know, a lot of their records are covers of era pop hits, mostly. And yet, In Space is an absolute start to finish amazing record. So I think the joke was like, if we're going to make something that is more adventurous than Dracula Invitational and uses, you know, vocal ooze and synthesizers and theremin and all sorts of stuff, let's do a piss take on Ventures in Space.
Very cool. Very cool. And when does that album come out?
March 8th.
Are you gonna have a listening party, a show especially for the release?
No, but we have a couple of music videos coming out in the next coming weeks to sort of announce that. But no, nothing. There's no like release show.
Yeah.
On the books, but so it is.
Are you planning on playing this summer?
Yeah, we have talked about maybe doing a West Coast tour in the summer or the fall. And we'll see where that goes. We'll see if we can get that together.
Cool, man. Well, I'm gonna leave you to the rest of your day, but I want to ask you if there's anything else you wanted to talk about that I may not have mentioned.
Oh, I mean, sure. I don't know. I'd love to just shoot the shit about surf stuff for a little if you want to go into just general surf conversation. But again, this is your show.
Oh, well, I'm what Jeff Hanson likes to call a newbie.
That's fine.
So excuse me. I know the 60s stuff from when I was a kid. But the newer stuff I was introduced from Johnny Fink from Missing Fink Records.
Cool.
And then I started following bands like the Messer Chubbs, and I don't know. Once I heard Dave Ronsky play, it was like, wow. So that's it for me, you know.
I mean, I love sort of the whole spectrum of surf stuff from, let's say, the late 50s kind of proto surf stuff, because obviously everything's a continuum. There's no definitive moment when surf starts, through obviously now including like John Blair inspired 80s stuff. Obviously John Blair, with his complete history, complete discography of surf music. So the 80s era stuff, I really love bands like Surf Trio. And then, yeah, modern stuff. I think a couple of my favorite modern bands, like Lace Agamemnons, Surfer Joe. Bands that are really strong on melody, I'm really into. And, you know, I think it's telling that my favorite bands are not from the United States. You know, Lace Agamemnon are French, Surfer Joe is Italian, because to me, surf music is such this international thing and always has been. And I think that's one of my big sticking points is that, yeah, sure, it's a Southern California sound for a year or two, and then immediately gets exported all over the globe. And because there's no language barrier, it goes so much faster than you otherwise would think. So the second the ventures play in Japan, there's this Aleki Bumu where Japanese manufacturers start producing an unbelievable amount of guitars. Kids are picking them up. And then by 1965, they're making better instrumental surf music than anything in America. And it lasts a little longer. It lasts a couple extra years before the group sounds hit there. But like, I mean, I'm wearing a Shark 5 shirt. Nobuhiro Mina from Shark 5 is absolutely the best guitarist in surf music. Also, Yuzakiyama, Torishi Takeshi are unbelievable, really strong melody-driven bands. And that's just Japan. You know, you've got stuff breaking the Eastern Bloc, you know, singing guitars from Russia. You've got bands like Erkin Koray, who ultimately becomes sort of the Turkish David Bowie. But right in the beginning, his first single is Dotty, which is as good as it gets instrumental-wise. And you can see that that Eastern Mediterranean sort of sound, sorry, I'm ranting at you now, but that Eastern Mediterranean sound is so ingrained in surf music that like it's natural for Septic Doggy to sort of fit the genre because Dick Dale is hearkening to Eastern Mediterranean sounds with songs like Miserlou. It's a big inspiration for him. And then, you know, there's stuff in South America when we break into, when surf music breaks into South America, bands like Los Castillos are mixing cumbia and surf music, or like Los Psychos, not necessarily an instrumental band, but you know, this is a huge, huge global phenomenon, and I think that, yeah, to look beyond America, both of era and now, is unbelievably important. It takes everyone throwing all sorts of diverse influences to make surf as vibrant as it always has been, as interesting and different band to band as it always has been. So yeah, sorry that I ranted at you for like 3 minutes there, but I think that's something that I think within the genre is really important, is this multicultural sound that can come from anywhere and be on the same footing with bands from Southern California.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree 100%. I started this podcast in during the pandemic because obviously there was nothing to do, nowhere to go, and no work. So I there was a couple of people I wanted to interview, and eventually Johnny Fink started sending me vinyl, and I started contacting the bands, and then I realized there was all these startup bands that were happening during the pandemic that were trading riffs back and forth. And at the time, I didn't realize how large the surf scene was because I'm just talking to this small group of startups. And then every year it kind of hits me like, oh my God, there's a festival over here. There's like one on, there's one in Mexico. There's one on the East Coast. There's one in New York, and then I just think, for the average person, like when I walk down the street and they say, what do you do in your spare time? I said, I have a surf podcast. And they're like, what's that? And, you know, so I'm not an aficionado. I'm just a fan, but it's hard explaining that to somebody who has no clue without playing it for them.
Yeah. If you tell someone you're into surf guitar, the responses are mostly confused. Sometimes you'll get like, oh, like the Beach Boys, like,
Yeah.
or whatever the modern equivalent of like vocal surf is, or that, and you have to, well, no, not like that, not really like the Beach Boys, but yeah, mostly met with confusion. But I think it's this really, honestly, obsessive hobby that a lot of people get into because there's a limit to it. There's this concept that it's not as expansive as the some other genres. So you really can dig in. You like really can try to get every record, like all the '60s records that John Blair cataloged. You can go for it. You can. There's a finish line almost. Now that's less true today, but you know, I've been trying to collect every Japanese record that I can, and there's no finish line, but it seems like there is.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's something that you can obsess over. It's something that you can know as many details as you can about. Um, you know, it's not quite to the level of baseball statistics where you can know everything, but it's on that level. That it's just something that you can dive into that some people get really obsessed with. I remember, have you ever listened to the Surf Legends and Rumors count that Steve Hoffman put out in the late '80s?
No, no, no.
In the late '80s, Steve Hoffman put out this CD count of just surf bands, and that's how I got hooked on at least '60s stuff. Was, oh man, there are all these. It was somebody who a record label was like, we've got all this dead stock. We own the copyright of all this dead stock. Throw it on a CD, and they expected it to sell basically no copies, and it sold huge. And actually, I think Hoffman himself contributed the first song on there. He like pretended to be a '60s band called the Surf Tones. Um, Cecilia Ann, that's a great song. But like that, one of the jumping off points for me. And then you just get so obsessed. You're like, who are these bands on this comp? What else is out there? Yeah, and then it leads. I'm sure you similarly were like, oh, I'm kind of a newbie here.
Yeah.
But you've gone from newbie to absolutely obsessed enough to do a podcast about modern surf music, which is crazy that it's this trap door that you fall into.
Well, what it is the music is good enough on its own, but when you talk to the people playing the music, writing the music, performing the music, promoting the music, putting the music out, and they're like, yeah, man, come on in, let's talk, and they're welcoming. Then you realize, it's kind of like a punk rock thing. Although I must say the surf ladies and fellows are a little bit more on time than the punks might be.
Punk time, yeah. No, I guess I'm saying that I mentioned that Hoffman comp, Surf Legends and Rumors. I just really dial it one step back, if that's okay. I think I got into surf basically based on one local band when I started going to shows, age like 14, called Skate Corpse, who is undeniably a punk band, but they did a few instrumental surf songs sprinkled in. Then, of course, there were bands like Agent Orange and JFA. I remember the first surf song I learned how to play was Walk Don't Run, not from the Ventures, but from JFA.
Yeah.
Just restarting the CD over and over again, trying to learn how to play. Yeah, and then from there. So really, I think that's a common tale, is that a lot of people into punk get into guitar because it seems so accessible, and then get into guitar enough to get into, maybe I want to play something a little more complicated, maybe I want to get better at my instrument, or maybe I have an ear for guitar in general now, and then fall down this rabbit hole.
Yeah. Yeah, you were mentioning John Blair earlier. Do you find inspiration in his sort of archival process, kind of like Ian MacKaye?
Punk archiving, punk, the extent of the ability to do really good archiving for punk is so much greater than the ability to do it for surf. And I say that from a standpoint of like, there are institutions that house the history of punk. You can go to Cornell and ask them to look at punk flyers, and they'll bring out 20,000 of them. You can go to UCLA and do that, and they'll bring out 20,000 of them. And they also have video. Like you can go watch New Wave Theater, every episode of it. Surf music's history exists largely in the platters. There's some ephemera, there's some video. But, I mean, think about it. If this is originating in the early 60s, television from the early 60s is often completely lost. You know, we've got some early 60s episodes of the Saturday Night Beach Nut Show or Dick Clark. But we only have those because someone pointed a film camera at a television so that they could rebroadcast it on the West Coast. Most of that stuff is completely lost because people thought it was disposable. Completely lost. You know, I've heard it often repeated that silent movies, only 10% of them exist because the nitrate film stock decayed. That's even more true with early television. So there just is an absolute cultural bucket for what exists for early surf stuff. It exists on the platters. It exists in the people who are there, their stories. But those people are starting to be 80 years old or not with us anymore. Randy Newart recently was a great archivist, had a lot of things in his sort of personal archive. But his house burned down in the California wildfires, and it's an absolute tragedy. And he passed away in that. So what are we left with? I think there needs to be a bigger focus on it. I would love to see people get more involved in that. But it's hard because so much is already lost. You allow, you know, you said Ian MacKaye, yeah, Discord really keeps track of its stuff, but I've seen recently that a lot of people involved in early Discord stuff have been selling off their personal archives to collectors, and then it sort of gets split up and goes around the globe, and, oh, I bought this one flyer for $45, or I bought this, and what you're really doing is splitting up these great collections. I wish there was more money to preserve them, to house them in one place. Obviously, that's not the case. And perhaps the time has passed to be able to do that with surf music, but maybe not quite. Maybe there is enough stuff. Maybe people need to be actively seeking out more. There's certainly more film to be had. There's certainly more truly film of concerts, but it's going to be hard to find. And it's going to take some poking. Sorry, I don't know if that answered your question of can we compare John Blair to Ian MacKaye, but
Oh, I mean, it's kind of like you yourself are have a vast knowledge of the history, and I think a lot of people, you know, I'm not going to mention any names, but you know who they are, and they share the same passion and knowledge as you do, that they're just hungry for more, and when they find something new, they're like, you know, they tell everybody. So I have an appreciation for what you for what you just said, and you know, so expanding on that was cool for me to hear.
yeah, I I am just as eager to learn from other people as I am to spread it myself. shout it from the rooftops. I have a hard time convincing people who aren't already into surf to pay attention. Those who are love jib jabbing about what bands we like, what records we like anybody does. Except I think there's also more of like, wow, I've never heard that before, and wanting to. If somebody wants to tell me about a band that I've never heard of before, give it to me.
Yeah, yeah, very cool. Well, thank you so much, Nick. And I was hoping you were going to go in this direction and expand on surf music, and you didn't disappoint. So I so much appreciate you being on the show and lending me some of your time.
Hey, no, I really appreciate having some place to spew my love of instrumental guitar music.
Cool, man. Have a great day.
You too. See ya.